the vanishing roommates. I moved into the apartment last summer, and from day one, something felt off about the place. It was cheap, too cheap for the neighborhood, but I couldn't pass it up. The landlord told me the previous tenant, a girl named Jen, was still living there and we'd be sharing the space. No problem, I thought. I wasn't picky. Jen wasn't what I expected. She was quiet, too quiet. She had this weird routine of leaving before dawn and coming back after midnight. I figured she worked odd hours. Maybe a night shift or something. But there was something unsettling about her. Sometimes I'd hear her talking in her room late at night. Not on the phone, though. There was never a reply. Just her voice murmuring words I couldn't make out. When I asked her about it, she'd shrug it off, change the subject, or simply leave the room. Weeks went by like that. I barely saw her. Just enough to exchange a few words here and there. Nothing personal. But what struck me as odd was her room. It was always locked. I thought maybe she was just private. Didn't want me snooping around. No big deal. But then one night, something changed. I came home late from a night out. The apartment was dark, the usual hum of city noise outside. As I passed her room, I noticed the door was cracked open. My curiosity got the best of me, so I pushed it open wider and stepped inside. The room was completely empty. No bed, no clothes, no furniture, nothing. It was as if no one had ever lived there. Not a single sign of life. I felt a chill run down my spine. I backed out of the room and closed the door, convincing myself it was just a trick of the light, or maybe she had moved out without telling me. After the unsettling discovery of Jen's empty room, I felt a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. The silence in the apartment was deafening, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The following morning, I decided to call the landlord. Maybe he could shed some light on what had happened to Jen. I dialed his number, my heart racing as I waited for him to pick up. "Hello?" he answered, his voice casual. "Hey, it's me, the new tenant. I have a question about Jen, the girl who was supposed to be living here. I went into her room and there's nothing in there. Did she move out?" There was a long pause on the other end before he replied. "There's no one named Jen living there." "What do you mean?" I felt my pulse quicken. "That's what you told me when I moved in." "I don't know who you're talking about," he said, his tone suddenly sharp. "The previous tenant was a girl named Helen. She left months ago." Confusion washed over me. "But I thought Jen was still here. I've seen her. She talks in her room at night." "Listen, I don't know what to tell you," he said, irritation creeping into his voice. "I don't manage the place anymore. Maybe you're just imagining things." I hung up, my mind racing. Had I really been seeing a ghost? I could almost hear Jen's murmurs echoing in my head, but now I couldn't even be sure she had ever existed. I decided to take a closer look around the apartment, hoping to find some clue that would explain this bizarre situation. I checked every corner, every closet, but everything else seemed normal. Just the faint smell of something stale in the air and a sense of disquiet that hung over me like a fog. Then I remembered the note I had found in her room, the one that hinted at something sinister. I rushed back, hoping it would provide some clarity. As I entered her empty room again, I scanned the space for anything I might have missed, but all that remained was the coldness of the four walls and the lingering sense of dread. That's when I noticed something on the floor, a piece of paper half hidden beneath the corner of the closet. I bent down and pulled it out. It was a crumpled-up letter addressed to Helen, filled with frantic warnings about strange noises and shadows watching her at night. My breath caught in my throat. The last line chilled me to the bone. "If you're reading this, you need to leave before it's too late." Suddenly, the air grew heavy around me, and I felt a presence behind me. I turned quickly, heart pounding, but the room was still empty. I stumbled backward, clutching the letter, when I realized I wasn't alone.